Okay, we're going live on Facebook. Just give that a second to get set up and then we will hit record. That looks live.
Hello. Hey. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here for the City of Philomath's work session on February 14th of 2022. This is our special Valentine's Day edition of our city work sessions. And first, we have city manager. He's going to break out into song. Oh, no?
Hey, you might get what you asked for.
So anyway, tonight's topic for the work session is to discuss the city's identified priority projects and efforts in the next fiscal year. And so hopefully you've had a chance to look through the document, our strategic plan, at some of the items that are called out as priorities in fiscal year 2022 and 23. I want to specifically hone in on those topics, and if there are items that should be identified as a priority but are not, that we should mention them tonight. The city is, Chris, you can go into this in a little bit more detail after I'm done, but the idea is that the budget for the next fiscal year will be developed based on the priorities that are identified in the strategic plan, as is typical. So that's the purpose for tonight's meeting, as I understand it, or for tonight's work session. Chris, did you want to add to that at all, or?
Maybe just time frame a little bit. So we're getting this to you. We had intended to talk about this in January and it got bumped. The intent would still be able to bring this back. So if there's ideas and thoughts tonight, we want to get those rolled into this. And at some point, we need to get this in front of the council during a regular session and get it adopted. So we've got some firm legs to stand on when we do start drafting budget documents and prepping that sort of thing. So we've got some time, but we don't have a lot of time. This isn't a 3 or 4 month kind of project. This is like, let's meet this time and then we can either take this up at the next work session or maybe 2 work sessions down the line, but we do need to get this in front of the council for an approval. I will just add, just because it's a little bit funky, at the very end of the document, hopefully you made it to the end, is the addendum. It has been updated, so any of the previous objectives and action items that at one point in time showed up on this strategic plan that have been completed or deemed completed are identified there. And I think it's pretty good. I will admit that in putting this together, I think I was working from about 3 different documents. And so this is a work session. I've got no pretext that this is perfect or error-free or even spelling 100% on the spell check. So I'm happy to get the input. This is a working session. It's a working document. And I really just want to get your feedback, both initial and in depth. So with that, Mayor Jones, if you just want to kind of take us through maybe a theme at a time or maybe a goal at a time and just kind of go through this again. We're not going to be able to go through the entirety of this 20+ pages in an hour this evening. So we really just kind of need to focus on areas of concern. If we can do that.
Yeah, so the first thing we have is theme 1, being a responsive, effective, and transparent governance. And under there, we have a few different objectives or goals, including maintaining a healthy budget a budget for healthy carryover within all funds. Ruth Causey, Councilor Causey.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if that $600,000 figure could be updated. I know that's at least 2 or 3 years old and it's probably closer to $1 million now. So I wonder if we could just ask Mike to update that figure.
And I'm just remembering, I think we added that or the equivalent to 5 months operating expenses. And I'm kind of remember maybe we talked about just striking the 600,000 and just leaving it the equivalent to 5 months. So if the council's okay with that, we can just leave out the dollar amount and just put really what's important is 5 months worth of operating expenses.
Councilor Lehman, you have a comment?
Yeah, the only question I have about that is that there isn't any reference to what that, as a guideline for the council, as to what that value would be. If we just say 5 months operating, it doesn't kind of give us any scale or scope or anything like that.
Okay, so the preference, just go ahead and just update the number and leave it in there.
I think that seems reasonable.
Okay, we can do it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any thoughts on the priorities under that goal? The city doesn't have anything identified as a priority. Councilor Andrade.
I wonder if objective 1.1.2 promotes city efforts and accomplishments in managing finances should be changed to something regarding transparency, and then adding an action item of displaying purchases online the way that other cities do. At least they do in their meeting packets.
So you're suggesting some cities do that? Yeah.
A lot of the ones that I've looked at, yes, including a city with this more or less the same population as us.
Yeah. And is that something that you think is a priority for this next fiscal year then? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, I think we should add it to our meeting packets.
And Councilor Bisco, do you have a comment on that?
I do. So I too have not looking for it, but run across a couple cities that do the same thing. It's just a higher level of transparency, and I've seen it both online posting and in packets as well. So it's showing up online in packets, but it's also showing up like on the city website, for example, and it's more of a monthly reporting of what expenditures are taking place. I also would like to see in this.
Oh, wait,
goal one-
Councilor Bisco, before we add things.
And I'd like to ask to have an additional recommendation.
Sure, that's great. Thank you. Councilor Nielsen, you had a comment?
I just said, like, could an example be provided for one of those cities that's mentioned either by Jessica or Councilor Andrade or Councilor Bisco? It would be nice to know a specific city or a couple to compare to, so I can get an idea what that is offering.
And Councilor Andrade, did you have an example city that the city could just reference as an example? Our audio may have been lost. Can you hear us, Councilor Andrade?
Now I can, sorry about that.
Councilor Nielsen was asking if you could provide an example from another city so that the city could draw upon that example.
Yeah, like send in a physical example or specifically name the city.
Either way would be a good start.
Cresswell.
Cresswell.
I believe Tangent, although they're much smaller.
That's fine.
I think Newport does. I can't quite remember.
And Chris, do you need to comment on that, or is that something you just want to explore further?
I can look at it further. I know a lot of it has to do with the software that you're using and the capabilities there. So I can take a little bit of look.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's the same as the objective. The objective there seems to be more of promoting accomplishments and managing the finances, kind of like pointing out things that are being done. This seems more like a transparency, which may be a different objective altogether.
And we can keep an eye out for that as we go through it a little bit. But Councilor Andrade. Do you have
Yeah,
follow-up?
no, at the beginning, I had suggested that we change that objective to just one of transparency because all of the promoting and stuff is still transparency. You're still telling the community what it is that we're doing. So I just thought it would be easier to just condense them into one.
And since this is our first objective that we're going through, I think it'd be good to keep our eye out for other spots that might be appropriate, if not there. But Counselor Bisco, you had something that you wanted to mention?
So I'll also just add to Councilor Nielsen's question, both Halsey and Corvallis do similar. They're not all the same. I don't think any of the cities I've seen are all the same, but they're providing a far more detailed reporting of budget expenditures. My additional comment or objective that I'd like us to consider is that budget review process. When we look at the goal 1.1, it's maintain budget for healthy carryover within all funds. I think that it's here again, there are many cities that actually do a budget planning meeting with the council, just kind of a touch base before you get before the full budget committee. And that's usually done at the end of the year. I know that was mentioned several times within council meetings and or work sessions. And we did not in fact have that opportunity before we are now kind of into that budget cycle. So if it would be possible to add that objective so that's an ongoing an occurrence to where once at a minimum once a year, the council is at least having a conversation about budget planning.
And I'm sure Chris is getting this written down, taking notes. Does anyone else have any thoughts on those priorities for that goal 1.1 objective? Okay, and some of those seem like that might be better under another goal personally, I think, but I still think that we can make note and look for opportunities to add such things. So moving on to goal 1.2, again, focusing in on the priorities for this next fiscal year. Did anyone have any thoughts on those? Enhancing current level of operations and city services. Councilor Lehman.
Yeah, I think we should put an objective in here regarding our ability to support hybrid meetings moving forward. I think our technology doesn't adequately address that currently, and I think we have some windfall ARPA funds that could be used for that. And I think we should create an objective for that in here so that we can act on it in the next budget year.
Cool. I thought there was something in there at some point because I know that Chris has been talking about it, but we will look at adding that. And Councilor Andrade.
So under objective 1.2.1, implement appropriate tech, with the action, utilize and report on new technologies implemented to make work more efficient. Why? I guess it feels a little presumptuous to say that what we're doing for fiscal year 21-22 is something that we've agreed to. And I understand that that's something we're going to talk about tonight.
We can talk about that later. We don't need to talk about that right now.
I just wanted to say that. And then looking at objective 1.2.2, ensure city's fee schedule is fair and equitable. I don't think any of the actions actually support the objective. It's just kind of saying it's detailing going through the motions, but it doesn't have any sort of reference to how to make it fair and equitable.
So, and I do want to focus this conversation on specific changes to the things that have been identified as priorities or things we want to add, rather than going through this whole thing. We're never going to get through it if we talk generally about the topics.
I understand that. I still think it's important to say.
Okay, but we really aren't going to have time to do that for every objective. I'm sorry. Counselor Bisco?
So I'll just call a little more attention to that objective 1.2.2. So fair and equitable is part of our inclusion, our inclusivity committee. And it is something that we should be looking at embedding into all of our objectives. So I do think it's a priority. We've had an established committee for this period of time. We've talked about DEI trainings. That's also in some of our strategic planning. So how to capture that in this space is probably appropriate looking forward, unless we're going to push off diversity, equity, and inclusion for another year.
I believe it's also in here in other spots, so it's definitely not all in one spot, but yeah, supportive.
It's not, but it is called out by this objective. And it does have to do with the fees. And since we are pretty systematically increasing fees, it is something, and this last round, we didn't actually give any benefit to lower income individuals. We have some rates that are the same, whether you're low income or not. It probably is at least worth prioritizing the discussion.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that tonight, I believe. And so moving through these objectives.
Yes,
Chris?
is there a specific action item there besides completing a fee schedule comparison? So, you know, besides comparing our fee schedule to other municipalities similar size as ours, is there a different action item that we'd like to do in order to get to fair and equitable rates or fees?
Counselor Kazi?
I just wanted to suggest that perhaps the objective could be reworded to indicate ensure a city's fee schedule is fair and equitable, particularly with respect to low-income individuals. So it's specified. And I believe that perhaps the fee that is the same whether you're low income or not did not change or was reduced to the low income level.
And I'll just remind folks that we did that specifically because there was a program that we're going to talk about tonight that would reimburse low-income folks for their water bills. And that was the reason that we made that specific change. So, Councilor Bisco.
I don't remember that being part of the conversation, but just a note that that is a program that will expire. So it wouldn't necessarily be
Right.
It wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for strategic planning if we know that it's already has an expiration date. To your point of adding, so Mr. Workman added that comment about maybe just calling out a different objective here. Perhaps if we just made we left the first three objectives, excuse me, under the objectives, we have 3 actions. If we added a separate action that addressed fair and equitable fees, I don't know what words we want to use, but maybe just add that 4th action that incorporates all actions above it, that we prioritize that review through that lens, might be beneficial in this space. I definitely do not think, though, that a program that's we know will expire and that's in the contract would be appropriate for long range planning that goes out to 2020, 25 and 26.
Yeah, and we do have we do have in our code a low income rate. So I don't think it's changing. We're just modified the structure temporarily. So moving on to the next goal, regular council engagement with citizens. We had identified a priority to administer a survey for city provided services. And Councilor Kazi.
This is a minor change on page 7, but even though the list of organizations under objective 1.2.3 is not exhaustive, I think it would be important to specifically list the Benton County NAACP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and on the top of page 8, could I ask that the words that apply to EDI be spelled out? There's a number of acronyms in this document that are not defined.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Andrade.
I'd like to point out that goal 1.3 is the exact same as objective 1.3.2, more or less. So I don't know if that matters. I definitely think it's important to do. And I'm curious about objective 1.3.3, action, have coffee with city council member sessions quarterly. Because the farmers market booth was an individual counselor thing. It wasn't a council body thing. And I think that's more important to have as action items. I think that anything that council members do separately from the body don't belong in the strategic plan.
Councilor Andrade,
And
what
that's
was the,
because, and that's because the council isn't saying, go and do this.
Councilor Andrade, what was the first reference that you gave? You said 1.3.2 was the same as.
Yeah,
which-
as just the goal, the name of the goal, regular council engagement with citizens, engage with the public on a regular basis. It's just worded differently.
So we could strike regular from goal 1.3 and just go with council engagement. And then she, had a comment on objective 1.3.3, suggesting striking the first action.
I didn't say that.
Want to remove the strategic plan, is that correct?
Oh, you know what? Sorry, I was thinking that would include town hall things. But yeah, anyway, yes, I suggest striking that
Councilor
action.
Bisco.
I just want to step back to the previous page. There's a lot of priorities here. I don't remember when we had a goal session to identify those priorities. So when I see that they're here, I don't want to just skip over just a couple of comments along the way. So I want to go back to page 7, objective 1.2.3, the strengthening rural regional cooperation. I would like to just amend that to see that we add Campo as part of that. So transportation, regional transportation continues to be a conversation. So there's one other, I think Councillor Lehman's a liaison to that group as well. Is that just Campo? Or
No.
is there's, okay, so it's I'm sorry, I don't have
Yeah.
all the acronyms memorized.
yeah.
I know you're involved in that,
Yeah.
and I know you work with Corvallis and Benton County on that as well, but both of those I'd like to see called out in that strengthening regional cooperation in that objective. And Councillor Lehman, would you mind clarifying what that was then, so that
Yeah, so there's Campo, and then there's also OMPOC, and then there's then ACTS, which is the Area Commission on Transportation, which is a subset of the State Transportation Commission, and it all starts to get kind of spaghetti-like if you say miss a meeting or something like that, you know.
can you define OMPS? I think that's what you said.
OMPOC is the basically is all the Campo, AMPO, and all the other metropolitan planning organizations under one umbrella, and it's called OMPOC, OMPOC, which is Oregon Municipal Planning Organization. I'm assuming C is committee. I don't know exactly what that is.
Thank you. Councilor Kazi.
Well, I wanted to go back to 1.3.3, so perhaps, are we finished on page 7? Okay.
You can always come back to it.
Okay, I would like to see the farmers market booth and other activities, particularly as we emerge from the pandemic, that those be broadened across the council and perhaps other committees of the city. And I think even though the farmers market booth attendance was initiated by Councilors Bisco and Andrade, I believe we were representing the city council. So
Yeah,
it doesn't seem inconsistent to me to include it.
Councilor Andrade.
If anything, no, we weren't representing the city. We were representing ourselves, council members who are part of the body that represents the city. It's not the same thing. And I think that we should include farmers market booth to like as an action item, but I don't think that the previous action, including the mayor's events held online, like that wasn't, held, that wasn't approved by the council. So, and this is a strategic plan for this city, not for individual councilors doing things.
Councilor Lowe.
Well, I think that's got got some merit, but I think so we don't confuse the public, we need to make it very clear if we're acting as individual councilors that that's what we're doing. We're not representing the body. So I think there needs to be some agreement that that is identified at any time that we meet the public.
And Jim, do you have any thoughts on that? What, we have a couple of counselors acting on their own, but
there's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing about being on the council that keeps you from doing whatever you can also do as a private citizen. I do think Councilor Lowe makes a good point about, it's good to keep what role you're doing stuff clear. And I'm here in my private capacity. That's fine. I'm here as a council representative. That's fine. That seems like that's not a particularly burdensome thing to do. And I think it does help the public know, well, when you say, wow, this is the greatest thing ever, is that the council speaking? Oh, no, it's my personal opinion. I might say that at a council meeting, but.
Sure, thank you. And Chris?
I think what I was going for here, because this have coffee with the council members has been on there for several years. And I think as we were going through the pandemic, I was kind of looking for things that the council's done in lieu of having the coffee with the counselor. And so admittedly, I kind of just took things that council members I knew were doing individually, either as the mayor or as council members, just to try to show that there were efforts on the city council's behalf, either as a body or individually, to have some interaction with the public. So I can strike both of those there. If we want to change the action item until we get further the pandemic, we can do that. But again, I was just trying to show the public that there have been efforts to engage with the public, even though we've not been able to sit down and have coffee.
Right, and I'll just add that I don't have an issue with it, individual counselor efforts to reach out to do public outreach being listed here. I know it's in a strategic plan. I think it also provides ideas to future councils of what's possible, looking back at what has been done. So I don't really see a problem with it being on here personally, but Councilor Bisco.
I would like to propose that we actually just identify two separate action items here, because I too feel that having those examples are helpful. But at the same time, individual city council activities like coffee with a counselor, those are certainly individuals not representing the council as a body. Maybe those individual things should be called out as individual things. And then perhaps we should add an action item here that are council, like the broad council interaction with the community. So not the town hall action item, but its own action item. So, I don't know what that might look like, but maybe that's an opportunity for a discussion. But if we isolate them as a whole council opportunity or an individual council engagement, we may get the benefit of both. And it allows us a little more planning space on this document.
So I'm thinking just on that, if I can Yeah, real quick. I think we'll just add an objective in there. We'll call it 1.3.4 and bump the others. We'll have one objective, which is to hold in-person sessions with the public. We'll keep like the quarterly town hall there. Then we'll have a second objective, which is for council members are encouraged to hold, regular in-person one-on-one or small group meetings. The intent of those small group ones is, it's not a public meeting. We don't have to declare it. We don't have to take a record of it. There's no minutes kept, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there are kind of two separate interactions there that we can capture. So if we're good at that, I think I've got enough information. I'll create a second objective and add kind of the coffee with the council member type action under that new objective.
Thank you. And Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, something along this line came up in the Planning Commission when they were reviewing Chapter 1 of the Comprehensive Plan. And it raised an interesting question that I don't think we need to debate this evening, but I think we should at least think about it, which is if I'm, sitting at Timbertown and a citizen comes up and talks to me about a particular issue, is that the same as if that person testified in front of a committee or in front of the city council during public comment section? And is it any different than if, I talking over the fence to my neighbor or getting a phone call from a community member that I know? And what is hearsay and what's on the public record, and how we evaluate the input that we're getting at these personalized events? And again, just something to keep in the back of your mind and think about. I don't want to hash it out tonight, but I thought it was a very interesting conversation. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'm just gonna do a quick time check because we have a little bit less than an hour, and I'd like to have a few minutes in between.
But originally tonight, what I was hoping we would do is each of us come here with our top 3 priority for the year to kind of focus in on a short number of things. I know we didn't ask you to do that, so I don't expect you to have that. But that was my original plan for this evening, rather than going through the entire document. But Councilor Lowe, you had a comment?
Yeah. So Mary, when you introduced this, you said that we're looking at it in terms of the budget. So I'm thinking that maybe we should be looking at things that have a monetary value and that we might envision that would happen in the next fiscal year. That maybe that should be our focus.
That would be ideal. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't mind that as a focus, but again, I don't want to necessarily limit discussion to just those things. I think we did that last year, and I did get some negative feedback that it seemed like it was so focused on the budget. There was an opportunity to talk about more general goals and objectives that individual council members had. So the points well taken. If you have specific budgetary items that aren't on here or that are on here that you want to give support for, I think it's appropriate to make sure that those are voiced tonight. But if you've got other objectives to start on here that you think the council needs to consider, I think those are fair game as well. And we'll have another go at this as well.
And Councilor Lowe?
Yeah, so I appreciate those comments. Possibly we could look at it 2 ways. I mean, we could have one that's focused on the budget, because I think that would be really helpful going into budget setting time, where we're just readdressing or affirming these are the things we want to do. But I think what the city manager is also saying about looking at the other elements, but maybe we could somehow split those 2 discussions off, have one that's focused on the non-budgetary types of things and maybe other additions, and then the meeting such as this that maybe it's just on the budget. So the thought.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Anything else on theme 1? Okay, let's go ahead, Councilor Pisco.
So theme 1 on page 9 also includes the cybersecurity resiliency plan, and that actually is identified as a priority. With respect to the budget and knowing that there have been an increasing number of cyber attacks, what is that budget implication? I guess maybe that's a question. If we're going to look at this through the budget lens, then having some sense from staff of what budget implications might exist in an objective like this one on cybersecurity might be helpful. But here too, I'm going to advocate for that goals planning, and this would be the perfect type of thing to bring in November so we can start looking at this through that lens of budgetary implications. It feels very pressured. I think it would have been helpful to know that you were aiming at budget specific items in this document, but I also do not want us to step away from other objectives that might be important as we move forward. It's just, we haven't put those goals together. This is part of that space where it feels like we're just missing. So to the point of cybersecurity, again, if there's some budget implication there, that seems very relevant as we see an increase in that. And I do believe for those of us, which were most of us at the small cities meeting, that was a topic from CIS as well, just a brief update of those increases.
Yeah, so a previous
Chris.
objective was to adopt a cybersecurity policy. So the city did do that successfully. City staff have all signed off on that. I believe each of you as council members with email accounts have signed that. So we're following that policy. This action item that's left on here is to test that planning its likely tax. And I've got that prioritized out, not for this fiscal year, but 2022, 20 or 23, 24. So it's a couple years out. It's not something I feel like we're going to be able to prioritize for this next fiscal year.
Thank
So
you.
this is just formatting the two X's in the fiscal year 22, 23 just means it's not scheduled for that year. So we'd be looking at making that a priority a couple years out. Not to say it's not important, it's just we are limited on what we can do. We do have to make priorities.
So yeah, this is an example where if the council felt like that should be a bigger priority than what it's identified or less of a priority, then this would be the appropriate space to say, no, Chris, you have to do that this year. So that's exactly appropriate.
You can even use that voice, and I
Yes.
won't take offense.
Deep voice, Councilor Andrade.
So what are the budget do you have an estimate of how much this would cost?
I don't think the council, that isn't really that relevant tonight. You know, if we say it's a priority, then I think that they could come back to us later after they figure that out. We're not going to have all the details tonight. So on theme two,
I mean, just generally real quick, it's a staff person, it's another task on their list of things to do. You know, cost wise, you're probably looking $5,000 to $15,000. I'm not sure what the exact cost would be, but it's going to be a cost for an outside unit to do this for us, and plus the staff time to make it a priority on their list of things to do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So moving on to healthy economy. Are there things on here that you'd like to see, or that you'd like to see a bigger priority than they are, or less of a priority? Councilor Bisco.
So I would like to encourage us to have a council liaison attending the economic, I can't remember, the development group that's on a county level. I know that Chris has been attending some of those, but I think also that council perspective might be beneficial, and a longer, I don't even want to say longer. I don't know if we need an economic citizen committee that has a representation from various of our small businesses on it that can liaise with the council. But I do and have heard numerous reports and concerns about we don't feel like we're getting necessarily the support that would be beneficial from the city. I certainly feel as a city, we're not leading this conversation, at least not loudly. And this is a space where you see cities that will pour into their business beyond just the Chamber of Commerce, for example. They actually form a committee, they actually move forward. So it's beyond just, you know, in the way that things look downtown, but it's actually very forward thinking with small business development and support. and grant support and tourism and all of that. And we really haven't done that. We did have that in the past, but that's not something that we just stand up in, 1 year either. So is that something that we could start looking at and finding out what maybe our small business community is looking at, what our citizen non-business community might find of interest for a Main Street business ideas? Long time back here now, we've talked about food carts and starter or maker spaces. None of that really has gotten any conversation because we're not really landing it in any space where we can support that.
Chris, do we have in this document, Chris, are we identifying the things that we're doing to promote small businesses in town or help?
Yeah, it's not something that we have a lot of capacity to do. I don't have a community development director of any sort. I don't have anybody to work directly with the businesses. I work pretty closely with the Chamber of Commerce, attend their meetings. We do have a council liaison with the chamber to try to build that relationship and keep that going. I've traditionally heard from our businesses that they feel like they're very much supported by us. We've got Oregon Rain for new businesses and entrepreneurs that are looking to start up. I partner with Benton County City of Corvallis Economic Development Director and Assistant on almost a weekly basis, it seems, assisting individual businesses with help. So I think we do quite a bit there. That's not really captured here on strategic plan type goals. It's part of the workload that I take on and that I do. But we could definitely look for other areas to do that. I think part of the problem is that I don't have a staff position that really does that. So, to want to do more focus on businesses, it's really about what kind of bandwidth I have when I'm not overseeing other projects to be able to do that.
Right.
So.
Councillor Andrade.
I want to reiterate Councillor Bisco's point. We had the area-wide plan meeting, town, like where people could come in and give input. And it was mostly councillors. And we haven't gotten good citizen input on that. And like we don't know, council doesn't know where we are with that. And the area-wide plan will help, should help, bring people downtown to, aid the businesses indirectly. So perhaps we should, I don't know where the area-wide plan is at, but perhaps we should include that as an objective or action item. And then regarding the CWED meetings, I don't remember what it stands for, but the economic development stuff with the COG, I know that the city manager attends and that he has limited capacity, but I agree with Councillor Bisco that, and I know that there's weird limitations from the COG about who can attend, but there have been things that council hasn't been aware of. There's been a grant opportunity that I happened to see and then wasn't able to pass on because it was too late. There was some sort of economic development plan that they were looking for input on. And again, just kind of passed me by. So if there's some way to work around that, that would be great. I don't have any suggestions with that. I would hope that anyone who knows could provide a potential action.
Yeah. And just, I do serve on the Cascades West Economic Development District Board now. So I am there.
Oh, really? I thought the liaison positions were not changed.
It's because I am now on the executive board of the COG.
Okay, so that means we now have a council member on an economic committee. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a board. Yeah.
Well, you're going to get information. That's good to know.
It just happened in the last couple weeks. Counselor Causey.
Yeah, I just wanted to support the idea of expanded economic development activities, but I would like to make those a priority for a time that's appropriate following the completion of the streetscapes project, because that's consuming so much of our time and effort right now. And in conjunction with that work, I would like to acknowledge somewhere the Downtown Streetscapes Art Committee, the ad hoc art committee that is working together on the streetscapes project, on the artistic elements going in.
Thank you. And I'm just going to add to Councilor Causey's comment that one of my big priorities for the year builds on this is promoting downtown businesses. And I'd love to see the city facilitating the conversation with the chamber or other organizations to get more events downtown, to draw more people into town, to promote tourism in the city. That's something that I'm very, very interested in doing. Chris?
There's Councilor Bisco's got her hand raised, then I've got a comment following her.
Sure. And Councilor Bisco, do you comment on that, or you're talking about different?
No, it's still on this topic. I can appreciate where we have kind of made some connections and networking. I actually attended one of the full classes with Oregon Rain, and I will say it's a great organization, but it's not a Build Philomath's downtown business organization. It's a support organization for individual businesses, and they do specific targeted trainings, whether it's marketing or scaling your business or things like that. So an amazing resource, but it's not really going to get to the core of what's happening in Philomath in our downtown business environment. What I would say is, if we're doing things so successfully, that's great, if that's the opinion of this council and staff. But I would say that if that's true, then our downtown needs more, because there's a lot of empty places there. There's a lot of businesses that don't succeed. We have a fair amount of empty potential lots and things that can be grown. And the Chamber of Commerce is a very different mechanism for supporting business. So it is a different conversation. I would like to propose that we actually add an objective that specifically looks at so the strategic plan goes from 2020 to 21 up to 2025-26, putting an objective on there to develop a citizen and business downtown economic vitality committee, or whatever we might want to call it. Certainly seems like it fits here in planning, and that at least lays the groundwork for that conversation.
Chris?
So just to shift the focus a little bit as to what's down here already. So I do have, as a priority going into this next fiscal year, as we're staying on top of the actual construction of the streetscape project, which I would argue is the absolutely most important thing the city can be doing right now if we want to revitalize downtown and have more businesses be successful in the downtown area. It's to have a downtown that is more friendly for pedestrians and cyclists and whatnot. But on top of that, I do have as a priority to revamp the facade improvement program. So we'll get that revamped so that as construction is kind of finishing up next year and a half out, so next fiscal year, right? We've got a program in place so we can start marketing that program a little bit. We'll have a little bit better idea how much money, if any, we've got left over from urban renewal that didn't have to get spent on the streetscape project itself. Or we've got some time we can identify other funds if the council wants to prioritize those to support the facade improvement program. I think that'll be a big help for our downtown businesses going forward. I'm not opposed to kind of a downtown revitalization committee of some sort in the future. But just historically, we did have that organization, and it wasn't able to kind of self-support. It competed with the chamber. It did a lot with the streetscape project and its initiation and getting things moving, but it kind of got to the point where it stalled out and found itself competing with the Chamber of Commerce. And so it dissolved itself, actually converted into a public art committee, and then eventually that dissolved itself. So I'm not opposed to those efforts where they're necessary, but I think the most important thing we do right now is kind of set the table, get the streetscape project in and get it focused on. So if we want to put a new objective that's out several years and see where we're at, I'm open to that. That'd be fine.
Thank you, Chris. And Councillor Kazi?
Oh, yes, I just wanted to ask what MVP stands for on page 10.
Yeah, it's Mid-Valley Partners, and we're rebranding, and we've actually got a new name, and I should know it off the top of my head, and I just don't because we just selected it. But it's the small cities group between Lynn and Benton counties that have pulled together for economic development. We applied for a grant and were awarded a grant to do some rebranding, help us get a website up and going, business toolkit and those types of things. So again, where I can't do that all individually, we have partnered with other small cities to try to pool resources and come together on those efforts.
I remember. Thank you.
Sure.
Councillor Bisco?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I feel like either I'm misspeaking or it's being misinterpreted, but I was proposing a committee of public, really more public involved individuals, not a heavy staff ask, not a bunch of resources and such. And to be fair, again, it wouldn't be in competition with the chamber. It would be, it's a different mechanism entirely. It's car versus, boat. It's not the same thing, but they both get you somewhere. Also that downtown program, that program that Chris mentioned did provide some resources. And again, we need to be asking the folks who are in that business environment. I don't feel like that's a city responsibility except to support that. And that's really what I was aiming at, was an advisory committee. So just to clarify, because I feel like what I'm hearing come back to me is not the same thing that I'm trying to propose. And I don't think we should exclude it just because it isn't the Chamber of Commerce either. I think we have room and opportunity for both.
Yeah, I think I had interpreted it correctly. I think it was, I think what you said was both times what I had heard myself. I suspect that others are the same in
I
agreement.
appreciate that, Mayor Jones, but if that's the case, then maybe you could redirect Mr. Workman, who obviously was getting a different interpretation. I'd appreciate that to help correct that so that it doesn't get misinterpreted moving forward.
And even in his response, it still seemed like it was completely the same thing. But sorry. So anything else under theme 2 that people see as priorities? Comments? Councillor Kazi?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify goal 2.3, develop and expand Villanova tourism. There's a comment, committee did not meet. What committee is that? Under objective 2.3.
For the Pacific Scenic Byway, Chris?
Yeah.
So there's a management aspect to that scenic byway. There's a management team that's pulled together. It's elected and appointed officials. This is one of those projects that you can blame COVID for all day and all night. I think there were great intentions to get this up and going, to have a ribbon cutting ceremony and really start working on the management strategy document that's been approved that identifies some waypoints, additional wayfinding signage, areas of historic significance. We even talked about doing some sound boards or some audio. It's a kind of a cool app that you can download on your phone where you can kind of do an audio tour as you're driving along. It'll point out locations as you go. And it really had a lot of steam going. And then with COVID, all that kind of it stopped. The meetings ended. There just wasn't the push anymore. So that committee probably needs to get re-energized, reinvigorated, and get going again. It's just it's one of those things that fell off over the last couple of years.
But it's not a committee of the city. It's not one of our committees.
No, it's an agreement between the stakeholders that help
Okay.
support the scenic byway.
Okay. I wonder if you could just specify what it is so we don't think it's some committee of the city that's slacked off and is not doing the job.
And that's not a city-led effort, right? It's who directs that?
It's not city-led effort, but we are a partner in the management team for the scenic byway. It's us and Walport and a couple of places in between.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Andrade?
I have two questions, kind of. For objective 2.3.3, support efforts that service or promote tourism in the city. There's the action item of establish a policy and program for distributing tourism grants to local organizations. I agree it needs to be a priority. I don't know if it's right to say that we provided grants to chamber and frolic projects when we didn't have a policy or a program in place. We just took any requests from that people had. So I don't know if that is appropriate to be there. And then also objective 2.3.4, consider implementation of a transient lodging tax to fund future investments in tourism. So do we really not have an agreement with the Department of Revenue? I had thought that we had that with the ordinance, but I must be misremembering.
The ordinance was to enter into an agreement. We just need to go through the process of doing the agreement. So it's just a prioritization thing. It just needs to happen.
So is that something that the city has to start, or is that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool, thank you.
And then with 2.3.3, are you making a recommendation to remove that language from fiscal year 2021, or were you just making a comment?
I mean, fiscal year 2021, those items should probably be under a different action item because they're not part of a policy and program for distributing tourism grants to local organizations. They were just, those organizations requested funds and the city said, okay, here you go.
I think actually that was our program up until that point. That was how it worked. And if we're suggesting changes to the program, then that's fine. But
We didn't have a program in place.
I don't see any issue because I don't think we would have distributed funds if we didn't have a program to do so. But anyway, so I think that stays if that's my perspective, but
we really didn't have a program.
Yeah, others might agree or disagree with that.
Can you please tell me what the program is then?
Chris, what was the program? I mean, what is our tourism dollars, right? Like we were distributing tourism dollars to local.
Received tourism dollars. So I reached out to the two organizations in town that provide tourist services and told them that the funds were available if they wanted to make a request to the city council.
And how is that fair and equitable? That's my point. And that was my point when we had that conversation last year when they requested funds.
So it's listed as a priority for the topic for this coming year. Do you have a problem with that, Councilor Andrade? Should we change it somehow?
No, like I said, I think that the fiscal year 2021 items should be under a different action item. I think it's disingenuous to suggest that they are under a policy and program.
Okay. Councilor
Lowe? Yeah, so I'm just thinking, so we have the new RV park that's coming online. So I'm wondering if there's a way we could leverage that event to expanded tourism. I mean, these are going to be folks that are coming in I think pretty nice RVs. They're going to have money to spend. They'll be in the community. There's a liquor store in town. It just seems like there are ways that we could leverage that. And then just thinking about businesses too, in terms of leveraging existing businesses. you know, we were very lucky to have Soft Star Shoes come in and revamp that old roller rink. And it seems to me it'd be really good if there was a way of getting some sort of testimonials from them saying how great it is to have come to Philomath. They've set up their business. They really love the environment, you know. So just a couple of ideas that I think could help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And Counselor Nielsen. And I'm just gonna do a time check, 6:30. I'm hoping that we can have a 10-minute break. And so finish up in 20 minutes.
Thank you, Councilor Lowe. I love the idea of a testimonial from successful businesses that have come to Philomath. I think that's very powerful, especially Soft Star. I was just wondering about the, since we have that Pacific Scenic Byway, and now that our Corvallis to Sea Trail, the C2C trail is completed, could we somehow support that as a part of our strategic plan as far as tourism goes? I don't know if that's a possibility, but I just know that will be promoting tourism through our town. It would be nice to get some of them to stop.
Seems like that used to be in here, something about C2C, and I don't know if we took it off because of we finished it or something, but
Yeah, I think initially the support was on helping them with their signage and granting them permission to get their signs in town and working with them on the route. And a lot of that work has been done. We don't have a specific action item about promoting that trail.
okay. So Councilor Causey?
Yeah, I just wanted to support the retention of the comment on providing grants to the Chamber and Frolic projects, even though it could have been done under a more formal program. But I wonder if we couldn't add as a priority to ask the inclusivity committee to review and restructure that program so it is more equitable, as they have done or are doing with charitable organizations.
We could. I'm concerned that that wouldn't occur before.
Before we actually need to have this program finished and functioning based upon the meeting schedule of the inclusivity committee. So I think, Chris, when would we need to have this program finished in order to have it implemented this year, or is it not going to be implemented this year? It'd be next year.
Well, we have funds in the budget this year. We have $5,000 in the budget this year that none of it's been distributed or used. So if we want that money to get spent this year, we want to be able to distribute that money this year, then we'd need to do it by the end of the fiscal year. If not, we can put it as a placeholder and carry it over to next year and have $10,000 next year instead of $5,000 this year. So it's not a high priority. Again, I've got it as a priority for next fiscal year. So, I'm not going to worry too much about if we don't get it done the next couple months.
Right. Okay. And Councilor Bisco?
Just a comment to this particular topic. So objective 2.3.3. I would be disappointed if we had another a third year of last minute, we need to push this money out. So I would advocate for either we make this a priority and we get a policy and program drafted well in advance of the end of the fiscal year, or we push this off as a priority, hold on to those funds, come back to it later and prioritize some other things. So just a comment, one way or the other, I would not want to see this turn into another, it's the end of the fiscal year and we need to assign this money. And I reached out to a certain group of folks and that's it. I don't, and to the point of Councilor Quasi, I appreciate that we're having, I very much appreciate the inclusivity committee. My concern is that we're burying the inclusivity committee with a lot of things that perhaps the council should be reviewing first, and then have the council have the so my interpretation of that inclusivity committee was that we were really going to look at external facing engagement as part of that. but also just that overview of policies, programs that exist to make sure that we have that DEI lens on those programs, rather than asking them to do all that heavy lift of developing programs, applications, proclamations. It just seems like we're asking a lot of the committee with the resources and the time that they have. So is that where we want to put our priority, I guess, is the question. I did want to comment to Councillor Lowe's, hadn't really thought about it, what those large RVs are going to look like on that part of town. Philomath is not a particularly vehicle-friendly community already, up to 38-foot rigs, which is reality, with a truck on top of it, which is another 18 to 24 feet. Will make a difference moving in our community. So as we look at the Letman RV development, I just want to throw this out again, since we're doing strategic planning. What does it look like, not the transportation piece, but to really encourage people that are in bigger vehicles like that, bigger vehicular traffic, to walk from the RV park into our downtown core? So how do we look at that next phase of improving walkability, pedestrian friendly, that space in between where the RV park will be? If we have folks that are going to be staying here, what's going to compel you to walk past Dairy Queen and through all these vacant and unimproved spaces to get to the downtown core? So just again, it kind of goes back to that tourism development conversation, that economic development conversation, but also pedestrian access, and encouraging that pedestrian access and really doing some wayfinding coming from that side of town. It won't be long before they're starting that project. And so I think we're going to see that come fast. So how can we encourage engagement by those folks, not by vehicle, which they're not going to find pleasant anyhow, and really actually make it a reason to stay in Philomath, not just a place to park on the way out of town.
Thank you. Councilor Andrade.
Oh, I don't know if you saw that Chris was going to say something.
But I didn't.
Oh, just kidding. I really appreciate what Councillor Bisco had to say about that. In, bettering walkability from the RV park where it will be to the downtown area. As it is, I live close to the high school, and whenever I try to start walking downtown on Main Street, it is absolutely horrifying, and it's so polluted, and it's loud, and people are racing by. So I understand that we're going to be having, better walkability improvements in the streetscapes, but that doesn't cover all the way down to where the RV park will be. So just another thing to support that idea that Councillor Bisco brought up. And then I would like to add an objective to goal 2.2. I'll let the county, state, and region know that Philomath is open for business. I would like, so I guess it would be objective 2.2.7. And that would be to reconsider, shoot, I wrote it down. To reconsider zoning for cannabis dispensaries. And under that, an action, because we functionally are not able to have cannabis in our city. And I think one of those action items could be having a town hall to see what the community wants. I'm not advocating for the zoning to change so that we can have cannabis dispensaries, but I do think that it is a conversation worth having, especially because it is something that people use medically for, trauma, to overcome trauma, PTSD. Vets use it. And on top of it, we get taxes. We get the, taxes from the state, and, from our city. And even there's a bill that needs to be passed. There's a bill that's going to be passed, hopefully, if they get enough support for it, where we could increase that the city could increase the percentage of tax up to 10%, because I believe it's currently only up to 3%. So it's just, there are many reasons why I think this should be reconsidered and taken to the public for conversation.
Anything else under goal 2, theme 2?
I'm sorry, are we not like yay, nay? Because we were doing that earlier.
Councilor Nielsen?
I think before we make that an objective for a strategic plan, I'd like to have the public call, because we have had this discussion as a community before, and it would be nice to have that before we make that an objective. To say that, yes, we're going to have dispensaries here due to this need of the city. I think we need to see if there is a need and a want for that in our city before we put it into our strategic plan.
Councilor Biscoe, you had a comment on this?
I do. So I just clarifying, I think that was the strategic plan item, was to add that objective to have that conversation, not to plan for having medical marijuana dispensaries in the community. So I think the action item was that engagement with the community to find out. So just clarifying that. And I do support that conversation. I don't really know where that might go. And Councilor Andrade is correct about the marijuana tax bills before the legislature right now that does allow a local community, or excuse me, a city municipality to increase any tax benefit. So when Measure 110 went through, they took a lot of the funding away from the cities and they funneled it towards services. With this new bill that's before the legislature now, it would allow for a 10% tax to be placed on such businesses if they were in fact in the community. But again, I do support the idea that at least we acknowledge that this is a commonly used consumable, and that it's appropriate for us to get some feedback on what this community says, yay or nay.
And I'll just add my perspective. I think that knowing that this is a politically charged topic, or people have an emotionally charged topic, personally, I would prefer to see the community come to the city and ask. I haven't seen anyone bring this forward except for Councilor Andrade. I'd be much more comfortable having this not be mentioned in the city in the strategic plan until we had people coming to us and asking for it. But the fact is that I haven't heard that ever in my role as mayor or in my role as councilor. And so I would not want to add that to the strategic plan unless I started hearing support or some sort of request for that from the community. Councilor Chris, you had a comment on that?
I was just clarifying as well. What I wrote down was consider zoning for cannabis dispensaries as the objective. And I guess I do need a little bit more clear guidance from the council as a body, if that's something you want added into the strategic plan or not.
Councilor Andrade.
I understand that that is your viewpoint, Mayor. I would like to point out that everything is political.
I meant
and
emotional.
that,
Sorry, I corrected myself. I didn't mean it political. I meant emotional.
oh, okay. I would just point out that it's legal and that it's something that can have a lot of good for this community. And like I said, it's just reconsidering the current zoning to be able to allow for it, especially because we're having changing demographics. We're going to have an influx. We already have had an influx of younger people who are more likely to use cannabis, including college students. I feel like it's just a conversation worth having. And the one action item we can have would be, have a town hall on this. And then the advertisement would be like, are you interested in having a cannabis dispensary? We're considering it, but something to that effect where it makes it clear that we just want to know what people think.
Councilor Biscoe.
Yeah, I'm just hoping, Mayor, that on this topic, I don't know that it's emotionally charged in all areas. I think a lot of folks do use this for practical reasons, and I don't consider it much different medicinally than a lot of other alternative medications and herbalists and apothecaries and such. So with that, I'm just curious if you would clarify what it is that you would like the community to come to you with in asking for this type of consideration. You're asking for public commentary? Are you asking for a survey? Are you asking for a petition? What exactly does that look like? So we're very clear what the ask is.
I have zero ask, but I'm just stating a fact that no one's ever come and mentioned it to me
in the past.
So you did actually say that you would want to have folks ask before you would consider it?
Okay, so I will rescind whatever you interpreted to be that. But
That is
I'm
what you
saying,
said.
regardless of what I said, what I am saying is that no matter what I said, what I am meant is that I personally have never had anyone come to me and ask for it or bring it up at all, except for Councilor Andrade and now Councilor Bisco.
Thank you for that clarification, Mayor.
Councilor Nielsen.
We do have objective 1.3.3, which allows for town hall meetings. And so I think rather than having this specific proposal added to our strategic plan, I would encourage us to have a town hall meeting as is indicated in the current strategic plan, but just give the topic of this rather than adding a new objective. I'm just not comfortable with that yet. Yes, the information, yes, gathering it, but I don't think we needed to have an objective with that topic is my point.
Councilor Lowe.
Councilor Nielsen, I think you make a good point on that. But I do agree with the mayor in terms of, I think we react and we're more motivated when we have citizens coming to us with a specific request and they want us action. And I think of the skate park as being one of those. You've got a lot of people that are motivated and they believe that there's something necessary for the community. And so they let us know. It's the first I've heard about a desire to have a dispensary, or which I'm not opposed to it or not, but I share with you, Mayor, that I have not heard this from anyone else in the community, that there's a need physically for that.
Thank you. Councilor Lehman.
Yeah, I agree that it's perfectly fine to have that as a discussion topic in the community. But I do want to remind everyone that even if we created a zone that allowed this type of activity, if we don't already have one, I don't know if there's anything on the books that say specifically you can't have a marijuana dispensary, but the rules that we made may have made it prohibitively onerous to do so. But you also have to have an entrepreneur who wants to open the business. So, we could pass a zone that allowed elephant farming, but if we don't have an entrepreneur that wants to farm elephants, it doesn't do us any good. So that's another element. If there were applications that, or a business person wanted to open a dispensary, but couldn't because of the way the code is set up and brought that to the city's attention, that's a different subject, I think, than just general community saying, yeah, it'd be okay if there was one or more, which I think is also fine and a conversation that should be had. Thanks.
Chris.
We're getting close to your 10 minutes before the meeting, but to Councilor Lehman's point, I'll say I think I could honestly say I've directed no less than 8 individuals over the last 3 or 4 years on what the process would be for setting up a dispensary in town. The first step is always to go in front of the city council and point out some of the rules that make it arduous or difficult. And none of them have come to the council to pursue it. So I don't know that coming to the city council is overly arduous or overly difficult first step, but there hasn't been the entrepreneur that really does want to take this on and has shown any interest in establishing a dispensary in town. And maybe that changes in the future, but again, part of the strategic plan is prioritization of what the city council is working on. And I would agree that I just don't feel like this is a huge priority at this point. I like the idea of the town hall, if that's something the city council wants to talk about in the future. But again, I'm happy to do what you want to do. I've not had a big interest in this, or at least any follow through with the interest that's been expressed.
Right. So I'm going to wrap up this conversation. Councilor Andrade, do you have a brief comment to state something different than we've already stated?
I do. So I think just because we haven't had very many entrepreneurs, then that means we need to advertise. The goal or the theme was let people know that Philomath is open for business. So that's what advertising is for, and promoting the city. And this council is too reactionary. We need to be more proactive to, or at least in my opinion, I apologize if to anyone that I may have offended saying that, but if we don't take that first step to consider removing those restrictions, because you are correct, Councilor Lehman, it's just there's zoning restrictions that prevent cannabis dispensaries from being here. It is arduous to be able to have to go through all of the paperwork. And on top of it, if we were to have someone who's if we have had someone who's been historically disadvantaged by cannabis use and they want to open a dispensary, then why shouldn't we help them? So I guess, like I said, I'm not trying to advocate for it, although I think it would be nice to have one here. Just a conversation. And there have been too many times where I have requested something and people have, shown some interest and nothing happens, like the social media policy ad hoc committee. So I think it's important to have a separate objective and action item.
Thank you. So with that, the work session has come to a close. We'll see you back here all in 7 minutes. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Adjourned.